They can take our ships, but they will never take our will.
Are you ready for an epic sci-fi saga that will shake you to your core? A story of unyielding defiance and righteous vengeance? In a galaxy dominated by alien powers, humanity faced its darkest hour. But a single, brutal act ignited a spark, awakening a slumbering force that would change everything. This isn't just a tale of interstellar war. It's about humanity's unbreakable spirit, our fight for freedom, and the moment we pushed back against oppression. You're about to witness ancient warships roar to life, technology light years ahead of its time, and a captain who will stop at nothing to secure justice for his people. This is more than just a story, it's our stand. So if you're ready to see humanity rise and unleash its full might, then don't wait. Hit that play button now to dive into this incredible journey. Like this video to show your support, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single moment of humanity's fight for its place among the stars. Blood, bright and sickening, splattered across the polished obsidian floor of the Grand Stellar Parliament. The crimson-skinned executioner, a towering Krillian warrior, calmly lowered his particle disruptor. Smoke curled from its barrel. The innocent blood belonged to a human child, a little boy whose wide, terrified eyes had pleaded just moments before. Now his small body lay still. That innocent blood, that brutal murder ignited a fire in humanity's heart. It awoke a rage that had slept for centuries. From the hidden depths of Xylos, Earth's forge world, humanity's ancient warships stirred. Their engines rumbled to life. They had waited for this moment of betrayal. Captain Kaelen Thorne stood on the command bridge of the HSS Stargazer. His ship orbited Xylos, his blue planet homeworld. Kaelen's fists clenched. His jaw was tight. He watched the live holofeed. The repulsive four-lag emissary, Xarthus, had just spoken. Xarthus had sickly green skin and many small, beady eyes. He announced the Stellar Parliament's decree, a total ban on all human warp travel. Humanity was trapped in their home system. Then, for the alleged crime of a human boy vandalizing an alien relic, they executed the child. Let this be a harsh lesson to your primitive species. Xarthus snarled into the camera. His voice was a guttural rasp. Humanity's insolence will no longer be tolerated. The feed cut out. Kaelen's voice was a ragged whisper. Did they kill the child? Commander Lyra Vance, her blue skin glowing, gripped the console. Her knuckles were white. Your orders, sir? A cold, unyielding fury filled Kaelen's eyes. He turned to his crew. Signal the fleet. Power up the Solarian cannons. Plot a warp jump straight to the Stellar Parliament's central nexus. This was the day humanity had dreaded. The day they secretly prepared for. The day alien aggressors would drop their false masks. They would reveal their true fangs. They would cross a line from which there was no return. The day Xylos itself was threatened. The Parliament's betrayal of galactic law became absolute. The moment had come to make the alien oppressors pay in blood. To unleash the full might of Xylos's most powerful warships. Ships that hadn't seen battle in centuries. Ships that would shake the galaxy today. They would burn the Parliament's worlds to ashes. Deep inside the massive cobalt mountains, stone cracked and split. Camouflage doors swung open. Captain Kaelen Thorne marched down into the hidden depths. His highest-ranking Xylosian Defense Force officers flanked him. The long, concrete halls were dark. Flickering amber emergency lights dimly lit them. Boot heels clicked on cement as the group reached the corridor's end. An immense blast door stood there. It was solid vibranium, several meters thick. Kaelen stepped forward. He placed his palm against the biometric scanner. It beeped, recognizing him. Slowly, ponderously, the door ground open. It swung wide. It revealed a cavernous underground hangar, shrouded in shadow. Kaelen hit a switch on the wall. Floodlights snapped on. They illuminated the secret space. The officers gasped. Their eyes went wide. The hangar was filled with rows upon rows of warships. Their hulls were forged from a strange, iridescent metal. It glimmered under the lights. The ships were angular, sleek, predatory. They were unlike anything these officers had ever seen. Kaelen turned to face his men. His expression was hard as granite. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the Aegis Fleet." He paused. Built in secret during the early days of human space exploration, hidden away as a last resort. When the Parliament confined us to our home system, they had no idea of the ace up our sleeve. Commander Lyra Vance stepped closer to the nearest vessel. She reached out. Her hand ran along its prow, her brow furrowed in awe. "I thought the Aegis Fleet was just a myth." Kaelen shook his head. "The Aegis Fleet is very real. And it's time to show the galaxy exactly what Xylosian ingenuity and determination can accomplish." He gestured to the shimmering armada. "The Parliament wants to confine us to Xylos. Let's see how they like it when we show up on their doorstep with technology centuries ahead of their own." His voice hardened, ringing through the hangar. "With the power of the Aegis Fleet, we will make them pay for their crimes. We will secure humanity's place among the stars." The gathered officers exchanged glances. Their faces were set with steely resolve. As one, they nodded. Kaelen straightened his uniform. He strode toward the lead ship. The others fell in a step behind him. "It is time to remind the galaxy that humanity bows to no one," Kaelen said. His voice was loud and clear. "We've been pushed too far. Now we push back. Today, we bring the fight to the Parliament's door. Today, they learn the consequences of their betrayal. Today, we unleash the Aegis Fleet." Light years away, Emissary Xarthis lounged on a floating divan in his lavish quarters. He was the very picture of decadence. The craggy-faced forelag sipped a glowing green liquor. He savored the burn as it slid down his throats. The drink was potent. It could strip paint off a starship hull. But to Xarthis, it tasted like water. An air chime sounded. Xarthis glanced up languidly as a holoscreen winked on. The face of Vic, his aide, swam into view. The diminutive Azurian's normally blue skin was flushed an anxious violet. "Emissary," Vic said. His voice was tight. "Our long-range sensors detected a large fleet of unknown vessels. They're entering our system at high speeds." Xarthis waved a dismissive hand. His many rings glinted. "So, send a patrol to intercept them. Probably just some upstart race trying to make a name for themselves." Vic shook his head. The movement was jerky with barely suppressed panic. "Sir, the patrol is already gone. They were destroyed the moment they entered weapons range. We didn't even get a visual on what attacked them." Xarthis sat bolt upright. His drink sloshed over the goblet's side. "What? How is that possible? What kind of weapons are they using?" Xarthis lurched to his feet. He strode to an ornate control panel in the wall. His fingers flew over the interface, punching in a code. The room darkened. A massive holographic display burst to life. It filled the air with a glowing star map of the Forelag system. A cluster of angry red dots sped toward the central blue orb. That orb represented the Forelag homeworld. Xarthis stared, uncomprehendingly. He took in the sheer number of incoming ships. By the gods, there are hundreds of them. How could an unknown race have a fleet that size without us knowing? An icy tendril of dread curled in Xarthis's gut. A horrifying suspicion crystallized in his mind. He turned to the holoscreen, meeting Vic's terrified gaze. "Vic, tell me everything you can about those ships. Leave nothing out." Xarthis's voice was deathly calm. It belied the fear churning inside him. If he was right about these invaders, then he had just made the gravest mistake of his life. A mistake that might spell the end of everything he knew. Vic's report was not encouraging. The ships were angular and sleek. Their hulls were an unknown iridescent alloy. It defied scans. They moved with impossible grace and speed. Their formations were flawless. And their weapons, by the ancestors, their weapons. Plasma cannons tore through shields like paper. Missiles moved faster than the eye could track. They never missed. Some strange directed energy beam sliced ships into pieces with surgical precision. But worst of all was the symbol. It was emblazoned on the prows of the incoming ships. A symbol every species in the galaxy had grown to fear. Even if only through whispered rumors and half-remembered legends. The symbol of the Xylosian dominion. Humanity had returned. And this time, they had come not as explorers or diplomats. They had come as conquerors. Conquerors armed with technology beyond the Forlag's wildest nightmares. Xarthus stumbled back from the display. His heart hammered a panicked beat against his ribs. He thought of the human child, cut down on the floor of the council chambers. On his order, the catalyst for this invasion. He had gravely miscalculated. He knew that now. They all had. And now his people would pay the price for his arrogance. As the Xylosian fleet drew inexorably closer, Xarthus found himself wondering if there was any force in the universe that could stop the oncoming storm. Somehow he doubted it. On the view screen, Xarthus's eyes bulged. His mouth opened and closed like a beach fish. He gripped the arms of his command chair. The plastic creaked under the force of his talons. Kaelen didn't give him a chance to recover. Xarthus seemed to deflate. His shoulders slumped. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "What do you want, human?" Kaelen leaned forward. His eyes bored into Xarthus. "Justice." The word hung in the air, cold and sharp. "The Parliament will rescind its ban on human warp travel. Immediately, you will acknowledge our right to expand and explore as we see fit. Any further acts of aggression against humanity will be met with swift and devastating retaliation." Xarthus's nostrils flared. His pride warred with his fear. "The Parliament will never agree to your demands. You're just one species. You can't dictate terms to the entire galaxy." Kaelen nodded to Lyra, who typed a command into her console. The view screen split. Xarthus's image shrank to a corner. A new visual took center stage. It showed the wreckage of the destroyed Forlag battle cruiser. The twisted metal still glowed cherry red. But it was what was happening around the debris field that made Xarthus gasp. Swarms of small, agile craft poured out of the Aegis Fleet's hangar bays. They darted toward the remaining Forlag ships like angry hornets. They moved with impossible speed and grace. They weaved and dodged through the defensive fire with ease. And then they opened up with their own weapons. And the Forlag ships began to die. Beams of searing blue-white energy sliced through shields and hulls. They left glowing scars. Missiles streaked from launch tubes, corkscrewing through space. They impacted with devastating force. The Forlag return fire was sporadic, panicked. They couldn't lock onto the human fighters. Their targeting systems were confused by the strange hull material. In mere minutes, a full third of the Forlag fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage. The remaining ships were in disarray. Their formation was broken. Their captains shouted contradictory orders. It was a rout. Through it all, the Aegis Fleet hung back. Weapons primed, but silent. They didn't need to engage. Their fighter screen was more than enough to handle the outclassed Forlag warships. Kaelen turned back to Xarthus. His expression was grim. "I want to ask again, emissary. Yield. Let this be the end of it." Xarthus slumped back in his chair. All the fight was gone from him. He looked around at his bridge crew. He saw the same realization in their eyes. They had gravely underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. With a trembling hand, Xarthus reached out. He terminated the transmission. The view screen went dark. Kaelen turned to Lyra. His eyes were hard. "Signal the fleet. All ships weapons tight. Give them a chance to comply." Lyra nodded, relaying the order. For a long moment, the bridge was silent. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every eye was glued to the tactical display. They watched the red and blue icons that represented the two fleets. Then slowly, the red icons began to move. One by one, the Forlag ships powered down their weapons. Their drives. They were surrendering. A cheer went up from the human crew. Fists pumped the air. Backs were slapped. They had done it. They had brought the mighty Stellar Parliament to its knees. But Kaelen didn't join in the celebration. He just stared at the display. His face was an unreadable mask. He knew this was just the beginning. The Parliament would not forgive this humiliation easily. There would be repercussions, political and military. The road ahead would be long and hard, paved with conflict and sacrifice. But Kaelen also knew that this was a turning point. No longer would humanity be content to live under the Parliament's thumb. No longer would they be second-class citizens in their own galaxy. Today, they had proven that they could not only stand up to the alien powers that sought to control them, but that they could beat them. Today, they had taken their first step toward a new future. A future where humanity charted its own course among the stars. And may the cosmos help anyone who tried to stand in their way. Xarthus's bulging eyes darted across the readouts. Numbers and symbols blurred into a maelstrom of impending doom. The human ships had vanished from the screens. It was as if they'd never been there. But the emissary knew better. They were out there, waiting, invisible predators, ready to strike. He slammed a webbed fist on the console. He barked orders in the guttural forelag language. Surround them. Box them in. Destroy them. The forelag fleet lurched into motion. Ponderous capital ships strained to outmaneuver their nimble adversaries. They spread out in a vast sphere. Weapons bristled from every surface. They sought to entrap the Xylosian Aegis Fleet. On the Stargazer's bridge, Kaelen leaned back in his command chair. A smile played across his lips. He watched the aliens' clumsy tactics. Beside him, Lyra frowned at the display. They're trying to hem us in. Cut off our escape routes. Should I order the fleet to pull back? Kaelen shook his head. His eyes glittered with anticipation. Negative. They want to play at being the superior species. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. All ships. He leaned forward, keying the fleet-wide comm. Initiate Phantom Protocol. A chorus of acknowledgements lit up the comm board. On the view screen, the Aegis fleet seemed to ripple and distort. Ship contours blurred. Then they faded from view entirely as the advanced stealth field engaged. In seconds, the human vessels had vanished from both visual and sensor detection. Wraiths haunted the void. Xarthus gaped at his displays in disbelief. His crew erupted in panicked shouts and warning klaxons. The human ships were just gone, as if they had never existed. Impossible, the emissary roared, but his words dissolved into a scream. The forelag flagship convulsed under a titanic impact. Sparks geysered from shattered consoles. The deck pitched wildly beneath Xarthus's feet. All around, the rest of the forelag armada fared no better. Balloons of fire and shrapnel burst from a dozen ships. The first salvo from the invisible Aegis fleet found its mark. Alien shields flared, flickered, then died. Hull plates crumpled like foil. The undetectable projectiles slammed home. Xarthus staggered to the flagship's viewport. His heart pounded a terrified rhythm in his chest. He watched in mute horror. His fleet was torn apart piece by piece. Human weapons struck with merciless precision. On the Stargazer, Kaelen watched the one-sided slaughter with cold satisfaction. Let the aliens feel the same fear and helplessness they inflicted on so many, he said. Let them reap the bitter harvest of their cruelty and arrogance. Cease fire, he ordered after a long moment. The words were heavy with finality. As quickly as it had begun, the barrage halted. The once proud forelag fleet was shattered and leaderless. Smoldering hulks drifted in the silent void. The pitiful remnants of the Parliament's might. Kaelen stared at Xarthus through the comm screen. His gaze was searing. When he spoke, each word was edged in steel. Look upon your fleet now, emissary. See how it has been humbled. How your boasted power has been proven to be nothing more than a brittle facade. Just as you held that innocent child's life in your hands, so now I hold the fate of your entire species. He leaned forward. His face filled the screen. His eyes bored into the trembling forelag. I want you to feel that fear, Xarthus. I want you to know, in the depths of your soul, how close you are to annihilation. How easy it would be for me to give the order and consign your wretched kind to oblivion. The human smiled then. It was a cold, terrible thing, devoid of warmth or mercy. But I won't. Not yet. I spare you now for one purpose only, to be a messenger. You will return to your parliament. You will tell them what happened here. You will make them understand that the age of their dominion is at an end. Humanity will no longer tolerate oppression. We will claim our rightful place among the stars, and we will brook no opposition. Those who stand against us will be ground to dust and cast into the stellar winds. He raised a hand in mocking benediction. Go now, Xarthus. Run back to your masters with your tail between your legs. And pray that when next we meet, I am feeling merciful. For your sake, and for the sake of your entire race. The transmission cut off. Xarthus stared at a blank screen. The taste of ashes was thick on his tongue. The galaxy had changed this day, and he had been the catalyst. Kaelen ended the transmission with a curt nod. Xarthus's face vanished from the view screen. Kaelen turned to face his bridge crew. His brow was furrowed. This is only the start. The Parliament won't let this stand. They'll gather their forces. They'll hit us with everything they've got. Lyra spoke up. Her fingers flew over her console. Captain, if the Parliament unites the other species against us, even the Aegis Fleet could be outmatched. We have the tech advantage, but they have the numbers. Kaelen nodded. His tactical mind already mapped out potential strategies. Then we need to level the playing field. Helm, plot a course for the Cygnus Nebula. Max Burn. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances, but they leapt into action. Hands darted over controls. The deck thrummed beneath their feet as the fleet jumped to warp speed. Stars blurred into streaks of light as they hurtled through the void. Kaelen gathered his officers in the briefing room. The holographic display cast a ghostly blue glow over their faces. The Cygnus Nebula is Raxian territory, he explained. They used to be a powerful warrior culture before the Parliament conquered them centuries ago. They've been toiling as slaves ever since. Our intel suggests they're primed for an uprising. An alliance with them could give us the manpower we need. The fleet dropped back into real space on the outskirts of the nebula. Its swirling purple and blue gases painted the view screen. Sensors pinged with contacts. A network of Raxian mining outposts. Each one crawled with armed Parliament overseers. Kaelen's lips curled into a predatory smile. All ships disengaged cloak. The human fleet shimmered into existence. Their sudden appearance sent the overseers into a panicked frenzy. Within minutes, the Parliament ships were in full retreat. Their engines flared as they fled. They left the bewildered but hopeful Raxian workers staring out at the human vessels. Kaelen opened a channel to the largest outpost. A weathered Raxian face filled the screen. His obsidian scales were marred by old battle scars. The alien regarded Kaelen warily. I am Captain Kaelen Thorne of Xylos. We are here to offer you a chance to break your chains and take vengeance on your enslavers. The Raxian narrowed his eyes. Suspicion was written in every line of his body. And why should we trust you, human? Your species are newcomers to the galactic stage. What could you possibly do for us? In response, Kaelen transmitted the footage of the confrontation with Xarthus and the decisive rout of the Forlag Armada. As the Raxian leader watched, his eyes widened. Disbelief gave way to a fierce, hungry gleam. When the recording finished, he looked at Kaelen with newfound respect. You've shown your strength, Earther. What do you want from us? Kaelen leaned forward. His voice was low and intense. Il propose une alliance. Fight alongside us. Together, we will shatter the Parliament's grip on the galaxy. Not just for humanity, but for all those they've crushed under their heel. The Raxian threw his head back and laughed. It was a harsh, guttural sound, filled with bloodlust and the promise of violence. You have a deal, human. The Raxian will stand with you. Together, we will savor the taste of the Parliament's terror. As the screen went dark, Kaelen turned to his crew. A fire burned in his eyes. The game pieces are moving into position. Prepare the fleet. It's time we bring the fight to the Parliament's doorstep. The combined human and Raxian fleet tore out of warp space. They appeared at the fringes of the stellar Parliament's home system, a dense cluster of heavily populated worlds and immense orbital installations. Instantly, warning klaxons wailed across the system. The Parliament's defenses came online. A seemingly impenetrable barrier of warships assembled around the central planet. On the bridge of the Stargazer, Kaelen surveyed the gathered forces. They've pulled back their fleets from across the galaxy, he noted. The core of their military strength is here. Lyra scowled at the tactical readout. Even with the Raxian numbers, we're still outmatched in raw firepower. Kaelen nodded grimly. Which is why we won't engage them head-on. We have to be tactical. All vessels, commence Phase 1. the human and Raxian ships began to maneuver. Not toward the waiting Parliament armada, but in a broad arc. They skirted the system's perimeter, angling for a massive space station. It bristled with sensor arrays and communication antennas. That's their primary system-wide comms and surveillance nexus, Kaelen explained. We knock that out, we blind them. We sow chaos in their coordination. As the fleet closed on the station, the Parliament warships guarding it accelerated to intercept. Just before they entered firing range, the human vessels shimmered and multiplied. Each ship abruptly fractured into a dozen mirror images. The Parliament ships wavered, thrown into confusion. Their scanners were inundated with false returns. By the time they realized the ruse, it was too late. The true human ships, shrouded by the sensor phantoms, were already on top of them. The void around the station erupted into a vicious melee. The Parliament vessels fought valiantly, but were outclassed. The humans had a technological edge. The Raxians had sheer savagery. Within minutes, the station's defenses were overrun. A fusillade of human quantum torpedoes reduced the massive construct to an expanding cloud of wreckage. Across the system, Parliament ships reeled. Their communications were cut. Their fleet-wide data network dissolved into white noise. Amidst the disarray, the human and Raxian ships pressed their advantage. They hammered key targets, shipyards, weapon placements, resupply points. With surgical exactitude, on the Stargazer, Kaelen watched. The Parliament's tight defensive formation began to fray. Their ships floundered, struggling to react to threats flaring up across the system. Phase 1 accomplished. Commence Phase 2. The human and Raxian fleet regrouped. No longer skirting the main Parliament armada. They drove straight at it. Weapons hot. Kaelen opened a channel to the Parliament flagship. This is Captain Kaelen Thorne of the Xylosian Aegis Fleet. Your comms are severed. Your defenses are buckling. Your fleet is in chaos. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. There was a protracted silence. Then a familiar face filled the screen. Emissary Xarthus. His features contorted with spiteful defiance. We will never yield to you, human scum. We will battle to the last vessel. The last warrior. The last gasp. Kaelen regarded him icily. So be it. He cut the channel. He turned to his crew. Signal all ships. No mercy given. Let's end this. The human and Raxian ships plunged into the heart of the Parliament fleet. Weapons blazing. The alien vessels swarmed to meet them. The void lit up with the glare of 1,000 exploding suns. The two sides clashed. Energy beams and missiles crisscrossed the gulf between them. Kaelen gripped the arms of his command chair. The Stargazer shuddered under a barrage of impacts. Its shields flared. On the view screen, a human destroyer erupted into a ball of plasma. A Parliament dreadnought siege cannon found its mark. A Krillian cruiser, trailing flames, and debris rammed a Parliament frigate. In the titanic battle's aftermath, the Stargazer drifted in space. Her hull was scored by energy blasts. Great rents were torn in her armored sides. Damage control teams rushed through the corridors, sealing breaches, rerouting power from shattered conduits. On the bridge, Kaelen conferred with his chief engineer. They pored over damage reports on a flickering screen. Route all available power to the repair drones. Kaelen ordered. Prioritize hull integrity and engine function. We need to be battle-ready as soon as possible. As the crew worked feverishly to bring the mighty ship back to fighting form, the rest of the fleet limped into view. Many vessels bore the scars of the ferocious engagement. Raxian ships, their angular hulls adorned with vibrant war paint, docked with the Stargazer. Hordes of boisterous warriors disembarked onto the human ship's decks. In the main hangar, a raucous celebration was underway. The Raxian toasted their victory, clashing their weapons, downing great flagons of potent, shimmering liquor. Human crew members, caught up in the infectious spirit, joined in the revelry, trading war stories, slapping backs with their fierce allies. But even as the festivities reached a fever pitch, urgent communications began flooding the Stargazer's comm channels. Kaelen, his face grim, called his senior staff to the briefing room. Reports are coming in from across the galaxy, he said. His voice was tight. With the Parliament's central fleet destroyed and their comms in disarray, uprisings are breaking out on dozens of worlds. Long-oppressed species are rising against their Parliament masters. Lyra, her eyes alight, leaned forward. This is the chance we've been waiting for, sir. The Parliament is reeling. If we strike now, hard and fast, we could end their tyranny once and for all. Kaelen nodded. His mind raced. He turned to the Raxian commander, Trax, a grizzled warrior with a jagged scar bisecting his face. What say you, Commander Trax? Your people have suffered under the Parliament's yoke for centuries. Will you fight with us in this final push? Trax bared his fangs in a fierce grin. The Raxian are with you, human. Our blades are thirsty for Parliament blood. Give the word, and we will unleash the full fury of our wrath. Kaelen stood. His eyes were hard as flint. Then it settled. We'll launch a coordinated assault on the Parliament's key strongholds. We'll hit them from all sides. Cut off the head of the snake. It's time to finish this once and for all. As the fleet leaders departed to brief their crews, an urgent hail blinked on Kaelen's personal comm. He frowned, stepping into a private alcove to take the call. The face on the screen was haggard, drawn with fear and exhaustion. It was one of Kaelen's covert operatives deep in Parliament space. Captain, the operative whispered, glancing over his shoulder. I have urgent news. Emissary Xarthus, he's alive. He escaped the destruction of his flagship. Kaelen's blood ran cold. What? How? I don't know. But he's rallying the remnants of the Parliament's forces, preparing for a counterattack. And Captain, there's more. The operative licked his lips. His voice trembled. Xarthus has a weapon. Some kind of doomsday device. They say it can destroy entire star systems. He's threatening to use it if the Parliament's rule is truly broken. Kaelen's fist clenched. His knuckles were white. The stakes had just gotten unimaginably higher. If Xarthus unleashed this weapon, it was galactic annihilation. Understood, he said. His voice was like gravel. Keep me informed. As the fleet jumped to warp speed, stars blurring into streaks of light, Kaelen stared out the viewport. His jaw was tight. They were headed for a remote, heavily defended Parliament base. Xarthus was reportedly holed up there with his apocalyptic weapon. It would be a mission fraught with danger, a desperate race against annihilation. But as Kaelen looked at the faces of his crew, hard and determined, he felt a flicker of hope amid the dread. They were humanity's champions, the tip of the spear. If anyone could pull this off, it was them. The Stargazer dropped out of warp space at the edge of the Parliament base's sensor range. Kaelen turned to his tactical officer. Initiate full stealth protocols, he ordered. Not so much as a whisper, you understand. As the mighty ship slipped into the shadow of an orbiting moon, its sensor-absorbent coating rendering it all but invisible, Kaelen gathered his strike team in the armory. They were the best, handpicked for their skills and courage. As they checked their weapons and armor, an electric tension filled the air, a coiled anticipation. Kaelen met each of their eyes. His gaze was unwavering. You all know the stakes, he said quietly. If we fail, if Xarthus deploys that weapon, there's no coming back from that. He placed a hand on the nearest soldier's shoulder. His grip was firm. But we will not fail. We can't. The fate of the galaxy rests on our shoulders. The strike team nodded as one. Their faces were set with iron resolve. They knew the odds, knew the risks, but they also knew their duty. As the Stargazer glided silently toward the looming Parliament base, Kaelen felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere in that sprawling complex of steel and shadows, Xarthus was waiting, his finger poised over the trigger of damnation. It would be a battle unlike any they had faced, a desperate struggle in the heart of the enemy's power. But as Kaelen checked the charge on his plasma rifle, he allowed himself a grim smile. The Parliament had underestimated humanity for the last time. One way or another, this ended today. The Stargazer glided silently through the void, a predator stalking its prey. On the bridge, Kaelen stood tense, ready, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The Parliament base grew larger by the second. Prepare for breach, he ordered, his voice low and steady. His hand-picked strike team the best of the best, checked their weapons one final time. Their faces were grim. As the ship closed in, the base's defenses roared to life. Energy cannons and missile batteries swiveled to lock on. But the Stargazer was ready. Its advanced stealth technology made it almost invisible to enemy sensors. "Fire the EMP," Kaelen commanded. A pulse of blue-white energy erupted from the ship's prow. It washed over the base. In an instant, the defenses fell silent. Their power systems were fried. "Go! Go! Go!" Kaelen roared, leading the charge. Breaching pods slammed into the base's hull. They cut through the outer bulkheads like plasma through butter. The team poured into the corridors. Alarms blared. Emergency lights flashed. The Parliament's elite guards rallied. Plasma fire crisscrossed the halls. The air filled with ozone and burnt flesh. Kaelen was a whirlwind. His rifle spat blue death as he advanced. His team followed close behind. They pushed deeper into the labyrinthine base, leaving a trail of broken bodies. But the Parliament guards were relentless. They poured into the corridors like an endless tide. For every one that fell, two more appeared, forcing the strike team to fight for every inch. Kaelen gritted his teeth as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head, close enough to singe his hair. He dropped to one knee. He snapped off a burst of shots. A guard tumbled, a smoking hole in his chest. All around him, his team fought desperate battles. The close quarters left no room for error. He saw Sergeant Arion, his crimson skin smeared with soot, grappling with a hulking alien. They rolled on the ground in a tangle of limbs. Private Ilera fell. She clutched the blackened ruin of her leg. Her screams mixed with the battle's roar. But still they pushed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to fail. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of blood and fire, they reached the heart of the base. The doors to the central command center loomed. Massive, imposing. Kaelen didn't hesitate. He slapped a breaching charge onto the unyielding metal. He stood back. His finger hovered over the detonator. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded in smoke and thunder. The charge blew, ripping the doors from their frame. Kaelen moved before the echoes faded. He stormed into the room beyond. Rifle raised. There, amidst consoles and holographic displays, stood Emissary Xarthus. The alien's green-skinned face twisted into a cruel smile when he saw Kaelen. His hand hovered over a large, ominous red button. "You're too late, human," he gloated. His voice dripped with malice. "With a single command, I can unleash the Doomsday device and reduce your precious Xylos to cosmic dust." Kaelen leveled his weapon at the emissary. His finger tightened on the trigger. "It's over, Xarthus. Stand down." But Xarthus only laughed, a manic gleam in his many eyes. "You think you've won? You think your little rebellion means anything? The Parliament's power is absolute, and I will see it restored, even if I have to destroy 1,000 worlds to do it." His hand slammed down on the control panel. The sound echoed through the sudden silence. But nothing happened. No alarms. No flashing lights. No sign the Doomsday device had activated. Xarthus's eyes widened in shock, in disbelief. He jabbed at the controls again and again. Growing more frantic, he whirled to face Kaelen. His face was a mask of rage and confusion. Kaelen allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Did you really think we'd come here without a plan?" he asked softly. "While you were focused on us, our operatives were hacking your systems, disabling your weapon. It's over, Xarthus. You've lost." For a long moment, Xarthus just stared. His primary mouth worked silently. He couldn't form words. Then, with a scream of pure, animalistic fury, he lunged at Kaelen. A hidden vibroblade slid from his sleeve. Kaelen met him head-on, blocking the alien strike with his rifle. The two leaders grappled, trading blows with brutal efficiency. The command center shuddered around them, rocked by the ongoing space battle overhead. They crashed into consoles. Sparks flew. Delicate equipment shattered under their weight. Kaelen felt the bite of Xarthus's blade, a searing line of fire across his ribs. But he pushed through the pain, retaliating with a vicious elbow to the alien's throat. Xarthus staggered back, gasping. Kaelen pressed his advantage. A swift kick to the knee. A hammer blow to the temple. The emissary was down. His blade clattered to the floor. Kaelen stood over his fallen foe, chest heaving, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. Xarthus glared up at him, hatred etched onto his grotesque face. "Finish it then, human," he spat, his words thick with blood and bile. "Take your revenge." For a long, tense moment, Kaelen just stared at him. His rifle was unwavering. The temptation burned in his veins like molten lead. To end it here, to repay all the pain the Parliament had inflicted, with a single, justified pull of the trigger. But even as his finger tightened, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He turned, and what he saw turned his blood to ice. The Doomsday Device's power core, a pulsating sphere of dark, swirling energy. It was fluctuating wildly. Arcs of raw electricity crawled across its surface. Warning lights flashed urgent red. A low, ominous hum of building charge filled the air, growing louder. In an instant, Kaelen understood. In the chaos of the fight, a stray shot or errant blow must have damaged the containment field. The core was destabilizing rapidly, its energies building to a catastrophic release. Kaelen's mind raced, desperately seeking a solution. But he already knew. There wasn't one. Not enough time to evacuate. Not enough time to repair the damage. Only one path remained. A last, desperate gamble. He turned to his strike team, the survivors of that hellish advance. They looked back at him, battered and bloodied, but unbroken, ready for whatever came next. "Get back to the ship," he ordered. His voice was rough with emotion. "All of you, get as far away from here as you can." "But, sir," Sergeant Arion protested. He stepped forward, his voice filled with anguish. "What about you?" Kaelen met his gaze. A sad smile touched his lips. "I'll stay behind. Try to contain the blast. Buy you as much time as I can." Understanding dawned in the sergeant's eyes, followed by anguish. He started to argue, but Kaelen cut him off with a raised hand. "That's an order, Arion. Get our people out. It's the only way." For a long, painful moment, the two men just stared at each other. A lifetime of service and sacrifice passed between them. Then slowly, Arion nodded. Tears glistened in his eyes. "It's been an honor, sir," he said softly. He snapped a crisp salute. Kaelen returned the salute. His vision blurred. The honor was mine. One by one, the strike team filed out. Each paused to offer a farewell. A clasp of the hand. A murmured word of thanks. Kaelen watched them go, pride and sorrow warring in his chest. Finally, he was alone. The command center was silent, save for the ominous hum of the destabilizing core. He turned to face it, squaring his shoulders against the rising fear. He thought of Xylos, the rolling green hills of his childhood home. He thought of his crew, the brave men and women who had followed him to hell and back. And he thought of that small, innocent child, the one whose death had set all of this in motion. "This is for you, kid," he whispered, stepping forward into the maelstrom. "For all of you." The world dissolved into searing light and roaring thunder. And Captain Kaelen Thorne knew no more. From the ashes of betrayal, from the cries of injustice, we rose. We've shown the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of when pushed to the brink. But our journey is far from over. The fight for true freedom and our rightful place among the stars continues. If you were gripped by Captain Thorne's unwavering resolve, and if you believe in humanity's destiny, then don't just watch this epic unfold. Become a part of it. Hit that like button if you felt the fury of Xylos. Subscribe to our channel to ensure you don't miss the next chapter of humanity's ascension. And leave a comment below telling us what you think was the most epic moment, or what you hope to see next. Your support fuels our future. Join the fight, and let's forge a new dawn together.